All right, everybody. Welcome to the Contextual Christian Church Bible Study, where today we're going to read Isaiah chapter 17, verse 10 to chapter 18, verse 7. I'm going to pray it in. Everybody, bow your heads. Father, thank you for getting us up on this Bible study today to go through Isaiah as we've been going through, um, getting the context of the things going on and the correlations to what them versus what happens in the future, right, or versus what happens in the last of days. I pray that with this one, we can continue that on that same path. We can continue on that same mindset. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, so as we went through last time, when we finished up chapter 16, we finished up with the connections between the destruction of Moab and the correlations to the New Testament, whether we're talking about the time of Christ or we're talking about the end of everything. So that's what we finished up with. But the last thing that it brought up went traced back to the actual accurate timeline of Moab and said that from this point when they wrote that, 3 years would pass before this destruction of Moab started taking place. Then we got into chapter 17. As we got into chapter 17, we first started dealing with the destruction that Damascus is dealing with, even from the cities of Aroer being left behind. And all that's left is like for the flocks and all the animals, the livestock. And then we got into that, speaking a little prophetically in verse 4 about in the day that it shall come to pass that the glory of Jacob shall be made thin. I mean, not prophetically, metaphorically. Sorry, wrong word. Metaphorically, bringing up about how that glory is not going to be, it's not going to be healthy. It's not going to be doing well. And then we start going into the connection prophetically, but about how in the New Testament, there's not a lot of Jews that are going to be saved. How even as it gave the example of harvesting corn and checking the corn piece by piece, and about grapes that are supposed to be set to be gleaned or harvested, but it's just like the shaking of an olive tree. There's only a couple berries that are actually left from the grapes. And so, bringing up the point that when that time comes in the New Testament, when the ones that are going to be saved, there's only going to be a little bit, even if it was the most fruitful branch, even if it was the most uppermost bough of the tree, the highest branches, there's only a couple left over. And then the last part that we got into, beyond just saying that, was about that, as it described it even more, as a forsaken bough and the uppermost branch. And that even though there's that little bit is left, it's going to be a bunch of desolation. So now we'll continue from that point as we go into our first section today, starting in verse 10 of chapter 17. And I'll switch it to our first section so our first reader can read. And don't forget, Charles, after you read, before you do the explanation, you know what you got to do, right? Charles?
Why did it? There we go. Sorry. Let you know if there's going to be one section, multiple sections, how
Exactly.
many sections, and all of that. Yes. Can you
All
hear me
right,
now?
good. Yep.
Good, good, good.
All right, then go ahead, stay unmuted, and go ahead when you're ready.
I'll read Isaiah chapter 17, verses 10 to 14. Give it a couple seconds. Verse 10. Because thou hast forsaken the God of thy salvation, and has not been mindful of the rock of thy strength. Therefore shalt thou plant pleasant plants, and shalt set it with strange slips. In the day shalt thou make thy plant to grow, and in the morning shalt thou make thy seed to flourish. But the harvest shall be a heap in the day of grief and of desperate sorrow. Woe to the multitude of many people, which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations, that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters, but God shall rebuke them. and they shall flee far off, and shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, and like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. And behold, at eventide trouble, and before the morning he is not. This is the portion of them that spoil us, and the lot of them that rob us.
Now, before you go into it, Charles, I have one thing I have to say, okay?
Go ahead.
All this rushing is not done for Mother Russia.
Thanks, man. Now you just threw me off from the context. Thank you.
Was a lot of
rushing. Oh, thanks for throwing me off.
Sorry, I had
to. So, one section. My whole section could be done in one section.
No. Thomas, how many sections should Charles take? He said one. That is not correct.
2.
And what would those sections be?
1 and 11 and 12 through 14.
Good. Thomas is correct, Charles. 10 and 11 are one section, and 12 to 14 are another. As you go to explain, try to keep that in mind, and then explain what is the separation.
Let me start with 10. Because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation, and has not been mindful of the rock of thy strength. Therefore shalt thou plant pleasant plants, and shalt set it with strange slips. In the day shalt thou make thy plant to grow, and in the morning shalt thou make thy seed to flourish. But the harvest shall be a heap in the day of grief and of desperate sorrow. Why does 10 and 11 sound like the opposite of what we got into in our last context with the ones that were the berries that were left, that were ready to be plucked, ready to be saved, versus those who forgot about God?
It's not the opposite. It's different entirely.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking about with 10 and 11. Because you forgot about God, which we're reading about Damascus and all of that.
What were we reading about last time, if you were to summarize it?
When we read about last time, we talked about, I wrote something down. So didn't we get into the harvest man? How he's the one that's, when he plucks, he's plucking what's ready to be plucked. We also talked about the berries that were left on the tree. How those berries that were left on the tree were the ones that were ready to be saved. They had salvation.
Well, that's not the part we're talking about. You didn't bring up that just now at all. You brought up the other section.
Wait, what do you mean I brought up the other section?
Okay, why did you bring up what we read about before? I thought we were on the same page when you brought it up.
When I brought it up, I thought I brought it up because of how we started off, because thou forgotten God, salvation, and then it talked about verse 11.
Charles, I want you to think about that, what you just said. When did we bring that part up last time?
The part about the harvestman and what's left, or are you talking about
the part of the harvestman?
So wait, which one are you talking about?
What you just said. You just combined parts that were not part of each other at all. Thomas, when were we talking about them forgetting about God and about that having to do with punishment? See if you remember.
Wasn't it in chapter 16?
Yeah, chapter 16, Charles. It was about Moab. God was saying how he's like, they're going to be getting rain, which is going to be his tears, remember?
Okay, but that's with Moab. I was trying to bring up this one with 10.
Okay, but you're not hearing me out. The part you're bringing up, you're mixing up which parts were connected. In 17, nowhere did we discuss about it being them being punished because they forgot about God. That was not in 17 at all. In 17, we were reading about those who are ready to be saved, and how
Right.
some of and how most of them were shaken loose like they were gone like if you shook an olive tree. That was the 17 part. So you explained something, you're connecting to what was in 16, but then you're calling it as if it's connected to 17. You're mixing up your parts.
Okay, so the when I brought up because thou hast forgotten God, I wasn't trying to like bring up something from 16 because I started off with 10. It literally
You
starts
said
off
what we
with
read last time. There was nothing in 17 that backs that up.
when I brought up because thou hast forgotten, I'm only talking about this section. The only thing I'm talking about from the last section was Harvest Man and the berries that were left, not the forgotten part. Just those two, the ones that were left.
Thomas, am I wrong? Did he not say that he brought up the forgetting God when he said what we read last time?
He did say that.
Thank you.
Okay, so then I apologize then. So let me start over. So 10 and 11. It starts off with because God was forgotten, God of the God of salvation. And when you forget God, you're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing towards God. You're in diving into all the other crap, sinful wickedness. It brought up that they're gonna plant, pleasant plants, but they're gonna be in like strange, it said slips, strange branches, strange vines. Which we already seen what happens when you do strange things, like with the strange fire. But anyways, um, they're gonna plant these pleasant plants, but these plants they're not gonna when you harvest them, they're not gonna come out pleasant. We're talking about a time where when it's time to get these plants, when it's time to reap, we're talking about a time of depression. We're talking about grief, sorrow after you plant this stuff. So that's 10 and 11.
Nope. 10 and 11 is not literal, Charles. You did it again. It's very clearly not literal. Because thou hast forgotten the God of thy salvation. What is and not been mindful of the rock of thy strength? Therefore thou shalt plant pleasant plants and shalt set it with strange slips. What is a pleasant plant, Charles?
Pleasant plant should be a good plant, a joyous plant.
Yeah,
But I
a plant that brings pleasantry. And then it goes into what you're reaping is grief and desperate sorrow. Are we talking about actual plants here? Is there a
so in other
sorrow plant, Charles?
so in other words, when you're talking about planting pleasant plants, trying to do good things, trying to set up good things, but it's not going to
Yeah.
come out. But it's not going to come out good. It's gonna whatever you set up that was supposed to be good, it's going to be just try. It's going to be bad, depressive,
I'm going to give you
sorrow,
a perfect
trash.
example of this. Remember when I was trying to reach you for God at the very, very beginning? What was one of the things I pushed against you? It was one of the biggest ones.
Pushed
Yeah.
against that. No, I don't remember at the moment.
All right, what was your goal back then? You had one
Plenty of
goal above
goals.
all else.
The trucking company or the weight loss, because those were the two big
No,
ones.
what? That wasn't your goal then. When I was first trying to reach you for God before you were baptized, what was your goal at the time?
Why wouldn't the goal be money related? How's that even
No, you
possible?
didn't say money. You said weight loss and you said trucking company. You weren't trying to get a trucking company at that time. You were trying to get money.
Go ahead.
So your goal was getting money. And what did I bring to your attention? What was the scenario? I explained it to you why it was pointless.
Something about the conversation of there's no point in you trying to get rich and come to God, because then what if you don't make it to that point? What if you got hit by a bus? What if this happened? What if that happened? You mean that?
Exactly. So you're building towards this future, or in other words, planting pleasant plants. But let's say you get hit by a car, or something. There's so many things that can happen that you could die or lose everything. You get all that built up just to lose it all and then not have salvation at the same time. That would be you planting pleasant plants, but harvesting a heap of grief and desperate sorrow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, writing it down too.
Writing what down?
What I got them, because this was metaphorical, building the pleasant plants in that example you just gave, building all of these things, doing all of these things just to not have the salvation.
Wait, what are you writing down about it? Explain it to me.
I wrote down what I got wrong with the pleasant plants
And what did
and
you
the
get
grief and
wrong?
sorrow. Because I was literal. I didn't metaphorically explain anything. And you metaphorically explained it and gave me an example.
Do you know why? But do you know what you slipped on and why you went literal?
Yeah, I didn't have a metaphorical thing. I didn't think of anything metaphorical with this. That's the biggest
No,
thing
that's
of it.
the
I didn't
that's
have
the
a.
effect. That's not the cause. All right, Thomas, do you know what his cause for going literal was? When it should have been metaphorical? Do you know where his slip up was?
The relations to actual plants.
Yes, the relations to actual plants. Write this in your notes, Charles. And it doesn't have to be word for word as long as it explains my point. Plants, there is no such thing as an emotional plant. There is no plant of joy. There is no plant of grief. There is no plant of sorrow. So, a good hint to let you know it's metaphorical and not literal is when it's expressing an emotion or a mindset or a level of success or failure in relation to planting, harvest, farming, or even raising animals.
Could you?
Anything that
I was
has
about.
to do with how the world works, like nature or farming or what have you, if it correlates something emotional or success level or mindset related, those are hints to let you know it's metaphorical, not literal.
Yeah. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'll simplify it. If you see expressions of emotion, mindset, or a level of success or failure related to plants, animals, farming, or anything that is not emotional but literal, those are hints to let you know it's metaphorical in some way or a comparison in some way. All right, tell me what you wrote down once you're done.
Let me write this down.
Yeah, you're good.
If you see an expression, or if you see an expression of emotion, mindset, or a level of success or failure related to plants, animals, farming, or anything that is not emotional but literal, those are hints to let you know that it's a metaphor or comparison in some form of way.
Exactly. So where was your hint in your section of 10 and 11?
The hints to let me know it was metaphorical.
Yeah.
The hint should have been the plants having the heap of grief and depression.
Yep. Those are two of them out of the three. Actually, I would say out of the five. Thomas, what other hints did he miss besides the grief and desperate sorrow?
Hold on 1 second. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
push.
There's five total sections to hint it.
I'm not sure besides the two that he named.
Okay. The first one of your hints in this section, I would write this, say that the hints of 10 and 11 from Isaiah 17, Charles, are hints in Isaiah 17, 10, and 11, because this will be a good example for you to look back on whenever you need to refresh on this. The hints from Isaiah 17, verses 10 and 11 were these. First hint is that they forgot the God of thy salvation. You got that?
I got the first one.
In parentheses afterwards, right? What does salvation have to do with plants? Nothing. Let me know when you got it after each one.
What does salvation have to do with plants? Nothing. I got that.
All right. Now go back out, finish or close the parentheses, and we're going to
Hmm.
number two.
Number two.
Rock of thy salvation.
Rock of thy salvation or thy strength.
I mean, of the strength. That's my fault. Rock of thy strength.
Rock of thy strength. Got it.
In parentheses, what does strength have to do with plants? Nothing. Then close the parentheses and go back to for number three.
What does strength have to do with plants? Nothing. Got that. What's number three?
All right. Pleasant plants. More specifically, the word pleasant. So put quotation marks around the word pleasant. So you should have pleasant with quotation marks and then plants.
Got it.
Then put in parentheses, plants are not pleasant or unpleasant by themselves.
by themselves. Plants are not pleasant or unpleasant by themselves. I got that part.
Good. The fourth, a heap in the day of grief.
A heap in the day of grief.
And then in parentheses, what does grief have to do with plants? Nothing.
What does grief have to do with plants? Nothing. Got that part too.
And desperate sorrow is the final one.
What does sorrow have to do with plants?
Exactly.
Nothing.
All right, Thomas, do you got that too?
Yeah.
All right. So now do you get why you slipped up, Charles?
Yeah.
Not
Now that
why,
you
I
bring
mean
this up.
how. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When you bring this up, yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's the first section. Now, what is he saying by the first section? What does he mean by saying that then? If we're talking metaphorical. One more time
Metaphorical.
before we continue.
Metaphorical. I'd have to go back to that example like you were talking about with me. How you guys think you're gonna do all these good things. You're gonna try to have all these good things, but you're not gonna have the salvation. Like when you're trying to build up your life or get your money up, do this and do that without learning about God, learning about Jesus, being saved first. You chose that. You chose that second before the getting the good things in life, getting the money and all of that.
Good. All right, then 12 to 14.
Let me reread. Woe to the multitude of many people. Woe would be that warning,
Mm-hmm.
which make a noise like the noise of the seas, and to the rushing of nations that make a rushing like the rushing of mighty waters. I read the Russian. I think about that joke. Um,
Sorry.
yeah, you're good. The nation shall rush like the Russian, as many waters. Well, let me go to Russian real quick. What do you mean by Strong's uproar as of a Russian? By implication, destruction. Now that sounds like warning to the multitude of people that are, which I'm trying not to. I'm trying to get the message out of this, but this is a warning to a multitude of people. Which wouldn't this warning be to the people that I just described, where you chose salvation second and you didn't choose it first? That are
Yes.
running around screaming, making that noise. Well, why would you be running around screaming, making that noise? Well, we're probably talking about a particular time period where because you chose it last, you're not saved. You get the you get what comes after because you're not saved. That's why you have people running around screaming and shouting and let me see. I have to add more to that. The nations shall rush like the rushing of many waters. But God shall rebuke them, and they shall flee far off, and they shall be chased as the chaff of the mountains before the wind, and like a rolling thing before the whirlwind. So isn't that used as an example tool to talk about them moving, running all over the place, screaming, shouting in the destruction?
Well, not only that, but the chaste there is different than chaste in other areas. There's two meanings for the word chaste. Chaste can mean like a virgin or innocent, or it can also mean like running away, like you're being chased.
In this context, I was taking it as running away. You're being chased.
Exactly. Exactly. So in it, God's going to correct them, God's going to discipline them. That's what a rebuke is. And they're going to be running far off, but they're going to be running, they're going to be chased like a chaff of the mountains, like the farm animals of the mountain are chasing to the mountain before the wind. So
The
they're running
rolling thing
away and
before a
freaking out like
whirlwind,
it's gonna make a difference.
I was thinking about the rolling thing before the whirlwind. I'm thinking about like something like a big old rock, like Indiana Jones, and you're running away. It's chasing you. You're like, do I go
Well,
left?
not
Do I
just
go
that, that
right?
can also be talking about the tide of an ocean when it rolls over.
Mm.
When you see like waves when they crash,
Okay. Okay.
and actually look at verse 14. I think that's more likely.
And behold, at eventide, trouble. And before the morning, he is not, because of the eventide.
Exactly. What is the tide?
The from the ocean, from the ocean.
Exactly.
Comes from the ocean. I almost said something left field. Coming from the ocean during the nighttime. When you're talking about
So
the
when it's talking about the
eventide,
rolling thing before the wind, what is it talking about?
they're talking about what you were bringing up, like how this like big tide comes in from the at the evening time when it hits the mountain and it does that little roll thing.
Exactly. Where the waves are crashing, rolling over themselves.
Yeah.
Good.
The other last part that needed, or I think it needs to be brought up, how it ended with, "This is the portion of them that spoil us, and the lot of them that rob us." These are the people that are taking from us, robbing us, stealing from us. The portion that's going to deal with the screaming, the shouting, the portion that has to deal with that eventide. Those are the groups.
Exactly.
Those are the groups robbing and stealing from us.
Who's us though?
Good. It would have to either be the children of Israel or the ones that were faithful to
There you
God.
go.
The children of Israel, the ones that's faithful to God. It had to be
There you
those.
go.
The
Good. So now here goes the final question for your section. So why is it two sections instead of one?
so
What
the
is the
first set
separation between the two, in other words?
because the first so wouldn't the separation be 10 and 11, given that the depiction of those that chose salvation second and what comes with, or the those that choose salvation second would be 10 and 11, and 12 to 14 would be the ones that robbed and stole from the children of Israel. This is what you're getting, this, you're getting that, you're getting the screaming and shouting and
Exactly.
all of that.
So we're actually talking about two different groups of people. The first group of people is in verse 10 and 11. The second group of people is 12 to 14. That's why it's two sections. Does that make sense, Charles?
Now it does.
All right. Thomas, do you get that too?
Yes.
All right. Now, do you guys have any comments or questions as we go to the second section? Now would be the time to raise your hands. Oh, and Thomas, do you see now why I was telling you yesterday about even though it's taking more time, I'm going to give you guys a chance to figure it out at first? Then we'll start to get a little bit more tight on it.
Yep.
All right. Now go ahead when you're ready with your section.
All right, I'll be reading Isaiah chapter 15, verses 1 through 5. Give it a couple seconds. Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the river of Ethiopia. that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of
Bulrushes.
bulrushes upon the water, saying, Go, ye swift messengers, to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the river has spoiled. All ye inhabitants of the world, and dwellers on the earth, see ye, when he lifted up an ensign on the mountains, and when he blowed,
Blowing.
bloweth, bloweth a trumpet, hear ye. For so the Lord said unto me, I will take my rest, and I will consider in my dwelling place like a clear heat upon herbs, and like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest.
Well,
And
that's
the forest,
herbs. Like herbs and spices.
oh, herbs, my bad. I don't know. What did I say?
You said herbs.
Herbs. Okay, my bad.
You're good.
For the harvest, when the bud is perfect, and a sour grape is ripening in the flower, he shall both cut off the sprigs with pruning hooks, and take away and cut down the branches.
Okay, before you go into it, you know you screwed up on your reading, right?
Yeah, I've been screwing up on my reading lately. I don't know what's going on.
You're not doing what we practiced. When you
Hold on
see a
one second.
comma,
Let me
what are
step
you
out of
supposed to
here.
do?
My bad.
You're not pausing at your commas. You're not even pausing at the uh, colons. You just read through like it was one sentence. Try
Yeah,
again.
I noticed that, man. I've been like that for the last 4 or 5 studies.
Yep,
I feel like
I
my
know.
eyes are falling behind. Like I can read fine, but my eyes fall behind, and next you know I'm stumbling over the same word and stuff like that. And I hate when that happens. I don't know what causes that, but
It's
something I
because
gotta
you
get over.
start off wrong. You went the in verse 1. You didn't even have the comma paused for wings. So you start off on a wrong pace and then you just continue it. You're not, you got to remember, how long does a habit take place for it to become a habit?
21 days
So what is that habit before it becomes a habit?
repetition. I mean,
Exactly. No, not just
yeah, but
repetition.
um, consistency doing.
Nope. Conscious
Right.
repetition. There are many things that you do for 21 days straight that don't become a habit throughout your life. The
Mm,
difference between the things that do and don't, 9 times out of 10, obviously, except for the rare exceptions, 9 times out of 10, it's the things that you purposefully or consciously do for 21 days straight. That's the difference maker. It doesn't happen by accident. You got to purposefully, you got to consciously do it for 21 days straight because that builds it up in your subconscious
yeah,
as a
I'm gonna give
pattern.
it another go.
So I'll give you hints from now on, but you need to think to yourself before you start reading, remember to pause when I need to pause. That should be the first thing you verbalize to yourself or in your mind. Remember to pause when I need to pause. Do that every time and you'll get better on your habit. Don't do it any times and you might get it good a couple times, but then you'll fail a bunch.
Yeah. All right.
All right, now try rereading one more time. But remember your
Verse
pauses.
verse 1. Woe to the land showing with wings, which is
Showing?
beyond shadowing with wings,
Try that
which is be
again. But
woe
you see
to
what you did there? When you slipped up, you just tried to push through. You see what I'm saying?
It's my eyes, dude. I don't know. So it's weird to explain, man.
Well, you did just wake up.
No, but it's been like that for the last few studies. Like I feel like I'm like just reading slower and just stumbling a lot more. I'm like, what is going on?
Well, maybe God is trying to get you to slow down.
All right, let's try this
Give
again.
give more of an effort to the focus and what you're reading rather than to getting it done.
Yeah. Verse 1. Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the river of Ethiopia, that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of
Oh,
bulrushes.
oh, oh. You're not pausing.
All right. That
I'm
sendeth
gonna I'm gonna read verse 1 for you again because you still didn't pause properly. Woe to the land woe to the wind. See, now I'm tripping up. Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, Go, ye swift messengers, to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from the beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land rivers have spoiled, whose land the rivers have spoiled. You see how much more effort in the pauses I gave than you?
Yeah.
Now, was my pausing 100% great when I did it like that? No. If I was to read that more of a natural reading, it would have sounded a little different. But I with doing those pauses, at least at that level, it's a good starting point for you. Making sure to give time to each portion. If I read it on a natural reading level, the way it should be, I would actually add more emphasis. If I'm saying woe to a land, is that something I'd say quietly?
No.
So there'd be a higher energy in the voice, right?
Yeah.
So if I was reading this properly with a natural reading voice, it would go something like this for verse 1 and 2. Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, Go, ye swift messengers, to the nations scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the rivers have spoiled. Now, do you hear the difference in the way that I read that, even from the other two ways?
Yeah.
Everything sounds real emphasized and it can really stick out, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before you can get to that as a pattern, we're practicing the basics right now. So even though it shouldn't be taking that long for certain pauses, you still got to get in the habit of doing the pauses at all. So let's just start with a period's length of pause for every comma to let it stand out.
All right.
So the way I want you to read it, even if you don't not reading the natural real way, it should go something like this. Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, Go, ye swift messengers, to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the rivers have spoiled. You see how I emphasized all the pausings there, even the part that doesn't need as much?
Yeah, I got it. That's a long
That
pause, though. I might not pause that long.
Well, as long as you show the pause, the point is you need to build a habit of actually catching each pause because you're
All
not
right.
catching them right now. So it might be better to do those long pauses so you can build that habit of catching them. Then we can work on a new habit of emphasizing the way it needs to be emphasized. But we got to catch the pauses before we can even do that. All right, so restart from one.
All right. Verse 1. Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the river of Ethiopia, that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the water, saying, Go, ye swift messengers, to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the rivers have spoiled. All ye inhabitants of the world, and dwellers on this earth, see ye, when he lifted up and sign on the mountains, and when he blowed a trumpet, hear ye. For the Lord
Use
said
up your
unto
pauses
me
there.
at the end of 3.
The whole thing of three. You
All right,
did
one
good
more
for
time.
1 and 2, but you need to give more time for your pauses.
Yep. All right, verse 3. All ye inhabitants of the world, and dwellers on the earth, see ye, when he lifted it, when he lifted up an ensign on the mountains, and when he blowed a trumpet, hear ye. For the Lord said unto me, I will take my rest, and I will consider in my dwelling place like a clear heat upon
Herbs.
and like herbs, and like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. For afore the harvest, when the bud is perfect, and the sour grape is ripening in the flower, he should both cut off the spring with pruning hooks, and take away and cut down the branches. All right. Okay. Let me get the sections here. Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
This seems like one section here.
Nope. Charles, how many sections is it?
I
See
got
if you get
two.
it.
I got two.
All right. What are the sections?
I have 1 to 3, and then 4 to 5.
Nope. You were right on the first part, wrong on the second part. Thomas, let me give you one more chance. What are the sections? Charles was right about it being 2.
Okay. And he said 1 to 3, 4 to 5. Um,
Nope. His sections were wrong, but the amount of sections was right. There's 2. But he said 1 to 3 and 4 to 5.
I would have thought the same thing, to be honest. But
I'll give you the hints as to why after to see if you get the sections right.
1 and 2 and 3 through 5.
Good.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just write something down real quick. Okay.
All right.
So go
So do
ahead.
you know why it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 5 and 3 through 5?
Give me like 10 seconds.
Not a problem.
So it sounds like the first section is a message that is to be sent out. They're sending out a messenger. Long story short, regarding this message that's being said,
They're
the
sending out a
warning,
messenger? No.
the warning in a sense.
Nope. The warning part, yeah, but the messenger, no. But that's not the hint to let you know that those are combined,
Okay, then
whereas
go
the
ahead.
rest is not. Charles, now that you know the sections, do you know why? Or what the
So
hint
one
is to
and
let you know?
the hint for the warning for 1 and 2. The biggest hint was that semicolon with the warning. The 1 and 2
There you
bowling.
go. That's part of it.
The other hint. Well, yeah. Do you want the hint? You want me to explain 3 to 5, or still with
How
one
do
and
we
two?
know it's a separate section? Yeah. But how do we know they're
Now,
connected?
now with 1 and 2, we have that warning, and it, it's
Well, it's
just
not the
going down with the.
warning. This is a warning. If we were to do based on the fact of it being a warning, it would be one section. Thomas would be right about that because the whole thing is a warning to pay attention.
So I don't have a way of getting it out of the separation between 1 and 2 and 3 and 5.
Okay. The separation between it, first and foremost, the way verse 1 starts, woe to the land. Which land? The land that's beyond the river Ethiopia. But then we have the colon. And then in verse 2, that sends ambassadors by the sea. So we're still in a continuing thought because of it specifies one land for the woe to go to, and it's a colon, and it continues from there. That's the first section. That's how we know those are connected. Now for the second section. The reason we know it's a new section is because the choice of land is different. What is the selection of land in verse 3, Thomas?
Earth. Hold on. Yeah. Mountains. Sorry,
Yeah.
mountains. This is on the mountains.
No, not the mountains.
So Earth in general.
Yeah, the
We got the
entire
seed
world.
in Earth. Yeah. Yeah.
So we go from verses 1 and 2, which is for a specific land, to verse 3 through 5. We're talking to the entire world.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And I would write down the verse section you had, Thomas, just like I had for Charles. So you can use this as an example to look back to practice seeing where the section off.
Got it.
All right. Now that we have our two sections, go ahead explaining the first section.
Okay. So The first section is a warning to the people beyond the river of Ethiopia that, let me just read two more time, that sendeth ambassadors by the sea, even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, Go, ye swift messengers, to a nation scattered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the river has spoiled. So this warning is uh to the people beyond the river of the Ethiopia who, in regards to them who are doing says to be a terrible people from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down. So send this warning out to these people who are doing terrible things in their nation and causing havoc in their nation and things of that nature, whose land
What?
the river has spoiled.
Nope. Where did it say they're doing terrible things?
So not say terrible things, but just it says to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto. So the people in themselves are just terrible.
Exactly. That's a state of being, a point of character assassination, so to speak. That is not an action.
I'm gonna write something down real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
can
in
go
your
ahead. I'm
writings,
listening.
I would say, as a little hint to keep in mind, pay attention to the difference between when something is an action versus if it's a description. You slip up on that a lot.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
So when it says, and use this as example, to a people terrible from their beginning. Let me know when you write it down.
Yeah.
In parentheses, right? It didn't say any action. It only described them as terrible from the beginning.
Gotcha.
Good. So if you were to simplify, and there's a part you forgot to bring up about verse 1, but we'll deal with that after we get to this point. If you were to simplify 1 and 2, what would you say is happening in 1 and 2?
It's a it's a warning to the terrible people beyond the river of Ethiopia.
Exactly. It's letting them know they're being warned. And it describes the people being warned. So how would you explain 1 and 2 if you were explaining it? If you were just giving a proper explanation, you would say, this is describing who the warning is going to. Then go into verse 3 through 4. But for this, there's one part of the description you didn't explain. It's the very first part of verse 1. What does that mean? Or what does that depict?
Woe to the land shadowing with wings. Woe to the land shadowing with wings. Sounds like okay. So when I think of that, I'm thinking them being covered up, obviously shadowing with wings,
Yeah. Given shade from wings, they're being covered. Exactly. Now, what's covering a metaphor for in the Bible all the time?
protection.
Exactly. So this is a warning to everybody who thinks they're okay that's beyond the river Ethiopia. Then you go into verse 2 that sendeth ambassadors by the sea even in vessels of bulrushes upon the waters, saying, Go, ye swift messengers, to nations gathered and peeled, to a people terrible from their beginning hitherto, a nation meted out and trodden down, whose land the rivers have spoiled. Okay, so who's the nation that's been described as terrible since their beginning? We've only had one nation that had that description. Do you know which
The
one?
children of Israel.
There we go. So this river beyond Ethiopia, or beyond the river of Ethiopia, they've been good. They've been on this moment. Everything's all right. And this is a warning to them because they're trying to send messengers out to the children of Israel. So, in other words, verse 1 and 2 is really saying for those that are beyond the river Ethiopia, don't be sitting here trying to send help to the children of Israel in this time. Don't be trying to warn them about what's coming to pass.
Writing it down.
You're good. Like I said, it's going to take a lot longer for these first couple ones, getting into this new habit in the beginning.
Okay. All right.
Now, go ahead with verse 3. Well, actually, let me, Charles, do you understand how we got that too? Charles, don't forget to unmute.
There we go. Now that you've been breaking it down, I've been writing all these notes you've been telling Thomas.
Okay, what is one you've written down?
I just wrote down for the land beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, the verse 1 and 2. Don't be warning or helping the children of Israel. Let me go back to the back page. What the nation, a nation terrible since the beginning, being the children of Israel.
Good. All right. Then go ahead, Thomas, with 3, 4, and 5.
Okay. I'm gonna read it one more time.
Not a problem.
I'll be forgetting. All right. All ye inhabitants. I knew I was gonna have it. Hold on. All ye inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, see ye, when he lifted up an ensign on the mountains, and when he bloweth a trumpet, hear ye. For the Lord saith unto me, I will take my rest, and I will consider my dwelling place like a clear heat upon herbs. Oh, I'm already getting it. Okay. So let me just finish this out. And like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. So we have, sorry, one second, guys. Let me get some water.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a message to the whole world now, not just the Pacific land, but this is a message to the whole world in regards to when the Lord, when hold on, so when the Lord, it says when the Lord lit up an ensign on the mountain, and when he bloweth the trumpet, hear ye. So pretty much when the Lord speaks, when the Lord sounds off, listen. And then we jump into 4. Then I'm gonna bring everything together after I go through them.
Yep.
For so the Lord saith unto me, I will take my rest, and I will consider my dwelling place like a clear heat upon herbs. Okay,
Herbs.
herbs. I keep saying that. My bad. And like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. So God is saying that He's going to he says, consider dwelling place like a clear heat upon herbs. I'm trying to understand what that means. I don't know what he means by clear heat.
Think of it visually. And writing this in your notes, when it gives a depiction that has a visual impact, actually try to visualize it. If you see herbs and there's heat on them, but it's a clear heat, what would it look like you're looking at?
Smoke. That's
What?
what I think of. You see,
Thomas,
what does it
is
mean by
smoke
heat?
clear?
What does it mean by heat? Like, is it just like heat as in hot, or is it something else?
Yeah, heat, clear heat. What does clear mean?
I think of like transparent.
Yeah, see through. Is smoke see through?
No,
Exactly. So if you could see herbs, see, now you got me doing it. If you could see herbs because the heat is clear, what would you be seeing happening?
I apologize, but I'm not understanding.
It's not an expounding question, it's a straightforward question. If you saw herbs that were getting heated up, but you could see through the heat to see what's happening to the herbs, what would you be
They're
seeing
getting hot.
happening? Not just hot. What happens to herbs when they're heated up? What happens
Cooking
to
them, you mean?
leaves when it's heated up?
Oh, they
Beyond
start to
burning.
break down.
Yeah, they break down. Well, not just break down, they shrivel up. Then they break down. So
Okay,
I will consider in my dwelling place, I will think heavily about all this in the place I live, like a clear heat upon herbs.
that's
So I'm
tough.
gonna, you see what I'm saying? Do you get what he's saying? So like you can see them shriveling up, you could see them deteriorating, you could see them getting destroyed as they're being destroyed. And I will consider in my dwelling place like a clear heat on herbs. So I'm going to consider with a real attempt this situation, like if I'm deciding what to do as I watch herbs be shriveled up and destroyed.
Right.
Could you repeat that? I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Yeah, you're good. If you're able to see herbs being heated up, you'll see them shrivel up and then be destroyed. So if you're watching herbs shrivel up and deep and be destroyed, what are you doing? Deciding what you're going to do with them. In the same way, God is considering in his dwelling place like that, then he's watching, as example, he's watching the children of Israel lose their fullness and deciding what to do with them, or just deciphering, so to speak, as he's watching them fall apart. Does that make sense?
Yes.
yeah, now it does.
All right. Now, how would that connect to three? Because we talked about how three, four, and five are connected. Thomas?
Hold on, let me finish this lesson.
Not a problem.
So he's like, when God sounds off his trumpet, you guys listen. All the everybody dwelling on the earth. Because so hold on. Let me get this straight. Is this like a we're still in the warning aspect. So is this in reference to what not to do? Because this is the outcome, if I'm correct.
Well, it's not the outcome yet. See,
Right.
1 and 2 was about who the warning is going to. 3 through 5 is who the warning is about. First and foremost, in 3, God points out that there's going to be a sign on the mountain, so to speak, and there's going to be a trumpet blowing. And you need to be paying attention when that happens, because God has, as he already said, I'm taking my rest and I'm considering in my dwelling place, or I will take my rest and I will consider my dwelling place, like if I'm watching herbs be burnt up, and like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest, shriveling up again, losing all it has. So pay attention for this sign in the mountains. Pay attention when this trumpet is blowing. Pay attention, because I'm going to be sitting here considering, I'm going to be sitting here thinking about things while I watch as you're shriveling up and losing everything that you have. Make sense?
So I put pay attention to this sign because God is considering what to do with the children of Israel watching as he's watching them fall apart.
Exactly.
Okay. Then we gotta add 5 into that. Let me read that one more time.
Mhm.
For the harvest, when the bud is
For
perfect,
a four.
for the harvest, when the bud is perfect, and the sour grapes is ripening in the flower, he shall both cut off the spring with pruning hooks, and take away and cuts down the branches. So for the harvest. So when it's time to harvest, pretty much the same
No,
correlation.
not time. A four does not mean at the time.
Let me go into Strong's.
Well, no, that's an English word. That's not a Hebrew
I've just
word.
never heard of it before. I
Yeah,
never
it's
used it
before.
or heard of it
Prior.
before. Okay,
A four is no different than saying like before, prior.
let me add that real quick. I ain't never used it like that.
Yep.
You got a Ford? Hold on.
You've probably heard it in business and movies or stuff, where they might say like the aforementioned in a lawyer speak. That would be the
Can't say
one
that
that was
I
mentioned prior.
mentioned prior before.
Yeah, the aforementioned would be the prior mentioned.
All right. So so before the harvest, before the harvest, when the bud is perfect and the sour grapes is ripening in the flower, I should have seen it, but it says ripening. He
Yep.
shall both cut off the spring with pruning hooks and take and take away and cut down the branches. So before the harvest and the ripening, he's already at it. He's cutting off the springs with pruning hooks and taking away and cutting down the branches.
Springs? Oh, sprigs.
Sprigs. I didn't even see that.
You're gonna have to look up that word.
Yep, I'm on it right now. All right. Sprigs. It says it says by reduplication from
What?
tremulous, that is twig, sprig, a twig.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can think like twigs on the ground is dried up. And you know when you have flowers or stuff, but you have the stems have dried out?
Yeah.
That type of thing.
So he cutting off all the dried out twigs with pruning hooks and taking away and cutting down the branches. So
Exactly.
he's harvesting the
Well, not
grapes.
harvesting. That's not the same
I
as
mean,
harvesting.
hold on one second.
Do you know what a harvest is?
Yeah, collecting. You're gathering everything because everything's ripened.
Exactly. So if you're doing this all before it, what are you cutting off?
The bad stuff, I would think, right?
Yes and no. Okay, so let me I'm gonna give you an example of this is how you make sure that roses grow properly.
Oh, like the imperfections and stuff like that.
Exactly. It's called pruning. You're
Gotcha.
pruning the roses. What you're doing is it's not time to harvest, it's not budding season, but you're cutting off the excess because it takes nutrients from the main flower. So all the imperfections, all the things that you don't want to continue to grow, you're taking it away and cutting it off.
Okay. So
So
God
in
is.
other words,
Go ahead.
how this would relate to four, do you get how it relates to four then?
So he's still talking about what he's going to do. Says so he's all the children of Israel. They're going through it with the burning. Let me go to my notes so I can give you a better explanation. I have it. Let me just put it into words real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Paying attention for this sign because God is considering what to do with the children of Israel as he watches them fall apart.
No, not concerning what he is going to do. That was based on the moment, but we got to connect four and five.
I was just reading it. I was going to add five after, but if I'm
Well,
wrong there, then
no, because that was without five. Concerning what he will do was based on the current, but when you add five, it has nothing to do with what he's doing.
okay. So
He's
then,
better yet. I would say considering what's already been done. God did this in the first 6 days. On the seventh day, he did all the work the first 6 days. Then on the seventh day, he rested. But do you remember what I said? What the word rested means?
I don't.
It means to relax, to enjoy. It doesn't mean to rest like tired. So when God rested on the seventh day, he enjoyed, he relaxed from in all his work. Well, if you're relaxing in all your work, aren't you thinking about all the work you've done?
Yeah.
So when it says in 4 that I will take my rest, I will consider my dwelling place in the heat of harvest, in when heat is clearing up the herbs. I mean, the clear heat is shriveling up the herbs. Am I thinking about what I'm going to do, or am I thinking about what I've done?
What you already done.
Exactly. So
So
then we
this is
get
the
into
aftermath.
5, and it says, because remember what the word for means. So
Yeah,
because of
before.
what I've just said, and what did he just say? Well, he's considering what he already did.
Yeah.
So because prior to the harvest, when the bud was perfect
Mm.
and the sour grape is ripening, so not when it is ripe, but when it's ripening in process to ripe, he cut off the bad parts, the unhealthy parts, the imperfections, and
And
cut down the branches.
is that what he's watching when it says he's watching?
Exactly.
Okay.
So when he's watching the heat shrivel up and dry up and harm these things, he's watching all of it after, because remember, he did this before harvest. He's watching all the results of his labor.
Hmm. Watching the results of his labor
So do you get what's
by the
happening in
doing.
3 through 5?
Yeah, so he did away with all the the people who aren't following, and now he's resting, watching the results of his labor.
Well, no, that's not what's happening in 3 through 5. What's happening in the verses of 3 through 5? That's what the words are saying is done. But what's overall happening in verses 3 through 5? What's he actually doing?
Uh, Resting and considering. Is that what you're saying? Getting at?
No. All right. Let me give Charles a chance before I give the answer. Charles, what is the writer? I didn't really give you a chance because I didn't give you this hint. What is the writer doing in 3 through 5? What is Isaiah doing in this in 3 through 5? Thomas, do you still not know?
He is explaining.
Nope.
He's okay. Go ahead.
All right, Charles.
No, I don't have it.
All right. He's actually reversing the actions. He's giving the end result and then tracking back to the beginning. In the process of time, what happens first out of 3 through 5? Thomas?
Sorry, I was taking notes. Oh,
In how natural time works, I should say.
what was the question?
Well, if you need to finish your notes, you can finish your
Yeah,
notes.
because I'm about
Remember,
to
this
forget.
first week is going to be longer because we're going into the aspects of this section. It'll take less time later.
What'd you say? What'd you initially say regarding to
He's
the reversal?
reversing time.
Time and action.
I never said action.
Okay. All
I
right, go
said he's
ahead.
reversing time with these verses. He's giving you the end result and then explaining how you got there. You see this in movies all the time when a hero's given an origin story. They may have some tragedy that happens, but as he goes through the rest of the story, you start off with the end result of the tragedy, and then you go way, way back to the beginning to track back to see how did we get to that point to begin with. See what I'm saying, Thomas and Charles?
Yeah.
Could you repeat what you said earlier? The writer is giving us the end result, and it was something you said right after that.
He's giving us the end result and then tracking back to the beginning.
Tracking back to the beginning. And then you just brought up this example with the superhero, the origin,
Exactly.
the origin story.
Exactly. I said they do that in movies a lot with heroes and in books and stories. When they're giving an origin story, you might have the end result of how they are a hero. Then it'll track backwards to the beginning of what led up to them becoming it. So, in a process of time naturally, in verses 3 through 5, what happens first? Thomas?
Going from 3 down to 5, you said?
Yep. In a process of time naturally, what happens with the things that are described?
Uh, so we have paying attention for the sign because God is considering uh, what to do with the children of Israel.
Nope.
Is that just going too far?
Nope. It's just incorrect. Charles, what happens naturally in a process of time first?
With 3 through 5, wouldn't the process start with getting rid of the clipping before the perfect harvest? Getting
Exactly.
rid of them first?
You haven't even gotten to the harvest yet, right?
My bad,
And
I
as we've been
misunderstood.
reading about, what does the harvest represent? Thomas?
Doing away with the non-followers.
Exactly. Or in other words, salvation. So before the harvest, because in verse 4, what's happening? We're dealing with the harvest, right? And the ones that are being thrown out.
Yeah.
In verse 3, we have the warning from the vision. But before you can have the warning, you have to have the vision for the warning to be explained, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the process of time, here's how it's actually playing out. In verse 5, prior to the harvest, we have the pruning of the unworthy parts of the branches. At the time when the bud is perfect, when it's in the middle of ripening, it's not ripe yet. That's when the pruning is going on. Then in verse 4, we have after we're at the time of harvest, where the dew is getting burnt up and the herbs are being destroyed, and God is considering or thinking on, in other words, whenever you see consider, you could always just read it as thinking on. It means the same thing. And he's thinking on this destruction, which obviously comes from the pruning that he did. Now, if we know, as we saw from the past chapters and what we're talking about even here, we're talking about the destruction of those that aren't following God. So we have the pruning of the ones that are not following. Then we have the destruction of the ones that are not following. Then we have it all being brought together in verse 3 about a sign going up in the mountains to let them all know to be warned. So, in other words, God is telling all the inhabitants of the world to be warned because he's already made his pruning complete for that comparison in order to get rid of the ones that are not going to be doing right. So, in other words, you need to make sure you're one of the ones that are doing right, not one of the ones that are going to be burnt up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You hear me?
Yeah. All right. Now, Thomas, go ahead and explain how each section is connected then, like I did with Charles.
Oh, 3 through 5?
Yep.
Or
Well, 1 and 2, and then 3 through 5. What are each section generally speaking? How are they? Why are they separated?
why they separated? Okay. Hold on one second. I'm going to my notes.
I just in Bible study. Yeah. You as well.
So, warning, 1 through 2 is a warning to a specific place, and that's the people beyond the river, Ethiopia. Let me say this. hold on. The terrible people beyond the river Ethiopia, long story short, to not be sending messages to the children of Israel. And then we have what makes 3 through 5 stand out from 1 and 2 is this is in regards to the pruning on the unworthy and the unworthy being destroyed, God sitting there considering his work. And then they also have the warning going out to the people
You went
regarding.
way into detail and did not answer the question.
Thought you said what separated them.
Yeah, I said why. What makes them a separation? You went into details of what's in them. You didn't actually say what is separating them. The separation is just one thing: the people that we're speaking to. That's the
So
separation. They're both a warning, right?
yeah, right. So 3 to 5 is talking to the entire world, and then the 1 through 2 is just talking to certain people.
Well, no. Charles, he's on the right track, but didn't get it quite right. What is the reason for the separation? Why do we know it's two sections? What are those sections difference?
Did we talk about the separation was 1 and 2 was to the one group, while 3 to 5 is to the rest of the world.
There you go. See, that's where you screwed up, Thomas.
So
You said it
group
was to
saying
the whole
people.
world, not the rest of the whole world. That's the
Mm,
difference.
gotcha.
Because if you say to the whole world, wouldn't the children of Israel that were being warned be included in the whole world?
Right.
And wouldn't the people beyond the river of Ethiopia be also included as part of the whole world?
Yep.
That's the point. So you were close, but when you said the whole world rather than the rest of the whole world, that's where you slipped up. So yeah, that's the distinction between the two. Verse 1 and 2 are actually for the people who are trying to help the children of Israel, giving them a warning, even though they're supposed to be judged. And 3 through 5 is the warning for the rest of the world to not be counted among the ones that are being pruned. Matter of fact, a better way to say it would be in 3 to 5. It's if we were to explain 3 through 5 as one section, separate from that separation, we could say that 3 through 5 is letting you know which group do you want to be a part of. Kind of like the joke. Have you guys heard the smoking section in Hell joke?
No, no, I haven't heard it.
All right, so if you were dining at the judgment table tonight, I just had to ask one question. Would you prefer smoking or non?
Not smoking, but
Exactly.
that's actually pretty funny.
It's a joke that's also supposed to provoke your mind to think. Like, oh, that was clever. So, anyways, that's the point of it. All right, good job, Thomas. Now, Charles and Thomas, do you guys have any comments or questions as we go to the final section for today? Now would be the time to raise your hand. All right, then, Charles, go ahead and finish this out.
Last section, I'll be reading Isaiah chapter 18, verses 6 to 7. Verse 6. They shall be left together unto the fowls of the mountains, and to the beasts of the earth. And the fowl shall summer upon them, and all the beasts of the earth shall winter upon them. In that time shall the present be brought unto the Lord of hosts of a people scattered and peeled, and from a people terrible from the beginning hitherto. A nation meted out and trodden under foot, whose land the rivers have spoiled. to the place of the name of the Lord of hosts, the Mount Zion. Well, thank you, 6 and 7. You gave me the most backwards thinking thing section. Let me reread. Oh no, before I even reread, I need to give you how many sections. So, matter of fact, actually, can I reread before I give you the how many sections?
Yes.
They shall be left together unto the fowls of the mountains, and to the beast of the earth. And the fowls shall summer upon them, and all the beasts of the earth shall winter upon them. In that time shall the present be brought unto the Lord of hosts of people scattered and peeled. This sounds like two. It sounds like I have to explain 6 and then I have to explain 7. This doesn't sound like they come together.
It gives exactly.
So two
But
sections. You said two sections, but
it's two sections because of where the placement was. Because it's just verses 6 and 7. Technically, it would be one new section. Does that make sense?
could you explain that technically it'd be one section?
Yeah,
So
let me give Thomas a chance first.
okay.
Thomas, do you understand how?
I would need that explanation too.
All right. Who is the they?
That was the part I was gonna reread because if you're talking about they should be left under the fowls of the mountains,
Well, I mean, that should be straightforward. If you're taking the full context into account,
they should be the
we,
ones that. Wait, I cut you off. Go ahead.
is 6 the beginning of the section?
It's not the beginning of the section.
So where does the beginning start?
The beginning of all of this starts at um, the the land that's beyond the rivers of Ethiopia for this whole
No,
thing for 18
no. We just said that a separate section happened after that, didn't we?
because that's 1 and 2. So this would be all the 3 to because the 6 is part of, so 6 has to be part of the 3 to 5 then, as in the inhabitants of the
Exactly.
world. They that are
6 is
left of
part of
the
5. The they left there, they shall be left together. Read 3 through 6 as one thing, and it'll make more sense.
verse 3. All ye inhabitants of the world and dwellers of on the earth, see ye when ye lift up an ensign on the mountains. And when he bloweth the trumpet, hear ye. For so the Lord said unto me, I will take my rest, and I will consider in my dwelling place like a clear heat upon herbs, and like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. For the harvest, when the bud is perfect,
For
and
a
the
fool.
4 of 4, sorry, 4 of 4, the harvest, when the bud is perfect, and the sour grape is ripening in the flower, he shall both cut off the sprigs with pruning hooks, and take away and cut down the branches. They shall be left together unto the fowls of the mountains.
So who's the they? Or what's the they?
They would be the ones you cut down and left.
Exactly. The sprigs and the branches that are left out.
And the prigs and the branches that are left out were those that were not following, were not doing what they were supposed to do.
Exactly. Does that make sense, Charles and Thomas?
It does now
Yes.
So do you get why I
because
say it is two, but technically it's one?
six was part of 3 to 5 in Thomas's section.
Exactly. And this is the point you need to keep in mind. This is why getting those sections matters. Should I have had to tell you that, Charles?
That six was part of 3 to 5. I got to work harder on getting better on determining that. So no.
Exactly. So once you can realize, and this is why we went back to the basics on it. Once you can realize where the section starts and where the section ends, then you'll be able to connect these on your own. Because if you already understood that, should you have ever said that it starts with verse 1?
No.
Exactly. Another hint. The section you're still in is the section you're still in, unless something proves that it's changed. An
I'm writing that
example,
down. Could you repeat that first part for me, please? Section you're
the
still in?
section you're in is still the section you're in, unless something proves that it changed or separated. And then in parentheses, put an example in Isaiah 18, verse 6. It may have started the new section on the Zoom, but was still part of verses 3 through 5. The same thing takes place over the course of beginnings of chapters in the Bible. When in the same book.
Could you repeat the same thing takes place over the
The
course
same
of the
thing takes place at the beginning of chapters in the same book in the Bible.
in the Bible? Got it.
Close the parentheses, a separate note. So when starting a new chapter or just starting your portion of reading on Zoom, the first thing you need to think about is if it's connected to the last section before you're reading.
Sorry, the first thing to think about.
Is if it's connected to the section just before you're reading.
Got it.
All right, you got that too, Thomas?
Yeah.
All right. Now that we got these sections, go ahead and explain them, Charles.
So, because six is with five, they that are left together, the ones that are plucked, the ones that are not following, they're going to be left with the fowls of the farm animals of the mountains and the beasts of the earth. Now, after the semicolon, and the
Why'd you
fowl
say
shall
farm animals?
unto the fowls of the mountains. Um,
Does that sound like farm animals to you, Charles?
Fowls of the mountains. What else could it be other than what else is of the mountain? Birds, sheep. Um,
Is a farm a mountain, Charles?
so we'll just say the animals of the mountains then.
Well, it's not just it's not a will just say, it's completely incorrect. A farm, what is a farm, Charles?
A land that you can plant stuff to, plant your
No,
seeds and grow stuff.
no, that is not what a farm is. A farm is a piece of land that is designated for the purpose of raising farm animals or planting crops.
Okay, so
You get the difference?
with what you said, with what I said, yeah.
All right, what's the difference?
So I just said, you said is a place designated for those animals, for those farm animals, are designated to grow crop, plant seeds, do all of that stuff. I didn't add
Mhm.
all of that when I said it. I just said a place where you just plant seeds, a
No, no,
piece
no,
of
no.
land and
That's
you
not what you
plant
said.
seeds.
You said a place you could. You said land where you could. That's where the difference is. Its purpose. The mountains could have a farm, but just because it could have a farm doesn't make it a farm. Unless it's designated to be farmland on the mountain, it's not a farm. If there is no purpose to farm animals, it's not a farm. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So the purpose is where I got it wrong.
Exactly. The fowl of the mountains, there's no purpose stated to farm birds. There's no farm there at all. It's just and matter of fact, a little telltale sign or hint for that is the fact that it said the mountains, the fowl of the mountains. When you see regional areas designated like mountains or forest or what have you, then that'll let you know that it's talking about that. All right, try again.
Okay, so the ones that were left, the ones that are not following God, they're going to be with when he brings up the fowls of the mountains, couldn't I just broadly say animals of those mountains?
No, because animals is not specific enough to the point being made. What do all those animals have in common?
It's just talking about of the mountains. So the only thing they have in common is that mount, whatever mountain it is, of the
No,
mountains.
there's multiple animals listed in six, and all of them have one thing in common.
Because you got fowls of the mountains, you got beasts of the earth. So beast is pretty much broad as far as
Yeah. Well,
it's just
fowls is broad too, isn't it?
both of them are broad. So
Exactly. So we're just talking about the random animals in the mountains and in the earth.
if we
In
say
other words,
random,
left to the wild, no longer under God's protection, no longer under that civility.
so just left in wild animals.
There you go.
So the ones that were left over would be with the wild animals.
Exactly. And what do wild animals do to twigs and do to branches?
If they're herbivores, they consume, but if they're predators, they're just gonna stomp on them, tread on them. They're nothing.
Exactly. So what is it really saying then by saying that? And what they're left to?
They're left to the wild animals that either consume them or just stomp on them, walk all over 'em.
Exactly. They're left to the wild to be destroyed. Make sense?
Yes, now it does.
All right, Thomas, you get how we got the A to B to C? Don't forget to unmute, Thomas.
My bad. Hold on.
Sounds like you're not paying attention.
You didn't give me a chance to explain. What you mean?
I mean, we were calling for you and then you didn't respond and then you said, hold on. Well,
I'm trying to hawk up a loogie, brother.
mm-hmm. I feel like there's a little more to it, but I'll let that slide.
It's all good. So he got into explanation of all the wild things just trampling over the remainings of the left behind children of Israel.
But do you get what how we got to the wild things and about them being left behind?
Right. You guys spoke on how the fowl and the beast, the broad, it's broad, just all sort of animals and things of that nature. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. The broadness
Okay.
of the animals and in relevancy to nature. Good.
Yep.
All right. Now go ahead, Charles, with verse 7 and explaining that.
Verse 7. In that time shall the present be brought unto the Lord of hosts of a people scattered and peeled, and from a people terrible from their beginning hitherto. A nation meted out and trodden underfoot. Who's Why does that sound like the thing that I be messing up a lot when it goes into a list? So first off, in that time shall the present be brought unto the Lord. A present. It didn't say what or specifically. It's just talking about a gift. A present. It's
Whoa, did it say gift?
not a well. A present would be a gift. What else
You
would a
sure?
present be? Well, what else would a present be?
Oh, I can think of a very important thing that it could be. Is that the only meaning of the word present?
It's the only one I can think of for the context. I'd have to.
Thomas, what's another meaning for the word present?
Offering.
No,
Offering.
not related to
Sacrifice.
gift.
Oh, like to showing up, like being there.
Never. That's present. Yeah, that is one of them. Not the one I'm looking for though. Charles, you got the past, you got the blank, and you got
In
the
the future.
future.
So present
What's the
tense as
blank?
in right. Present tense as in like right now.
Exactly.
What's
But
in the
not
moment?
right now, right now. In verse 7, it could mean a gift, or what else could be there?
In a particular time period.
Exactly. So in that time shall the present can either mean a gift or it can mean at that time shall the current be brought unto the Lord. Now, which makes more sense in the context?
The To me the gift was because of be brought unto the Lord. So it's
No,
being brought to God.
that doesn't make sense with the context. Read the rest
The
of that
time
up until the point of the comma.
In that time shall the present be brought unto the Lord of hosts of a people scattered and peeled.
Yeah. In that time shall the gift be brought unto the Lord of hosts of a people scattered and peeled.
So in a specific time, or in that time, a present time, a specific time, is brought to God. This time of the people scattered and peeled.
Not a time.
Because that's when you bring up like present time. It's we know present time means like current, what's going on in the
What did
moment.
Thomas bring up in his definition of present?
I heard he did the offering one, but he did another one. I'm trying to remember what he did the other
Yes,
one.
the other one, that's the answer. Thomas, what was the other one? Not the offering.
Being there, like
Being there.
That's what I thought was present tense was, like in the moment.
No. Because you said at that time a time frame to be brought there. Like that don't make no sense.
So what Thomas was saying with being there, that makes more sense. Being so, let me go back. In that time shall the present be brought unto the Lord of hosts of a people scattered and peeled. I'm trying to figure out a way to re-say it without just rereading, like to re-say
All
this
right.
whole thing.
Here, I'll give you an example. In that time shall the people who are there be brought unto the Lord of hosts of a people scattered and peeled.
Excuse me. Okay, so with your example, the people being brought there.
So, like the people who are alive at the time that are scattered will be brought forth before God.
Write that down. Oh, that particular time period sounds like the last of days.
There we go. Now you caught it.
That's talking about the last of days, because he's not bringing the ones. If you're talking about bringing the people towards you, you're not bringing back a people the unfaithful. You're not bringing those to you in the last of days. You're
Is
bringing the
this the only
faithful.
part that's talking about that?
Let me keep going. And from a people terrible from their beginning hitherto. Didn't we get into that being one nation, the children of Israel being labeled that? The people that were terrible from the beginning.
Exactly.
A nation meted out and trodden underfoot. Um, we talked about a lot of people getting trodden underfoot. I'll just leave that broad because we talked about a lot of other groups, a lot of
Well,
nations
no,
that can be stomped
it's
out.
not broad. From a people terrible from their beginning hitherto. We talked about
That's
who that's talking about.
that's the children of Israel,
Yeah, and that's a semicolon.
right?
A nation meted out and trodden underfoot.
Oh, so the semicolon's not giving me a list like as in the third. It's giving me the you're saying is as a description of the people that were terrible from the beginning, not a list.
Exactly. Multiple descriptions of the same people.
Got it.
One,
Okay.
there are people who were scattered and peeled, and they were also a people who were terrible from the beginning hitherto. That's how we know we're talking about the children of Israel. Who did we hear the prophesy that were going to be scattered and peeled?
Children of Israel.
Who has also been described as terrible from their beginning even to this point?
Children of Israel.
So does it sound like we're going to different people or sound like multiple depictions of the same people?
Multiple descriptions of the children of Israel.
Exactly. A nation meted out and trodden underfoot. So who's that talking about?
Children of Israel.
Exactly. Whose land the rivers have spoiled, to the place of the name of the Lord of hosts. Children of Israel. Now, what does meted out mean?
Let me go back. From H6957 in the sense of fastening, stalwart, meted out.
Exactly. Starved and trodden underfoot. Remember what we read about the glory of the children of Israel, the glory of Jacob?
How it would be thin. And the fat would be lean.
Exactly. So, was 6 and 7 the only ones talking about the end times?
Well, okay, so when you're asking that, are you saying like with Thomas section, does his dad talk about it too? Or are you just getting into what we got into previous Bible studies?
I'm talking about this whole. Okay, remember, we went through the context of 17, right?
Yeah.
We finished up chapter 16, then we got into 17. Chapter 16, what was that comparing and contrasting?
Wasn't that comparing and contrast Moab? Wrote it down. Moab and
Exactly. 16 was comparing, contrasting Moab in its current state and the destruction that's coming to them, and comparing that to the New Testament and the end times. Certain parts went to certain parts. Then, when we got into 17 in verse 1, the burden of Damascus, going through this whole burden in correlation to Damascus, and all the way to verse 3, we were talking about all the burden they were going to. And then came verse 4. And from verse 4 on, it was comparing what was happening to the children of Israel in Damascus with the end times. Not the time when Jesus comes, but the end of everything. Remember in verse 6, yet gleaning grapes shall be left in it as the shaking of an olive tree. 2 or 3 berries in the top of the uppermost bough, 4 or 5 in the outmost fruitful branches. There's only going to be a few left that are actually able to be collected, harvested. The rest of them are not able to be harvested. Then we got into today's. In chapter 17, finishing up, what were we going into? About the salvation, about how God doesn't want, I mean, even though like these people are rejected God and they think everything's going to work out, but it's not. Well, what does that correlate to in 17 still? The salvation at the end times. You may think it's working out, but it ain't working out for you. And then now in 18 verse 1, it said, woe to the land shadow with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. And in verse 2, so basically saying not to send warnings or try to help them, to leave them to their own destruction. And then we got into verse 3 on to 6 about God had already prepared the ones that were going to be cut off prior to the harvest, in the time of ripening, not even the time of harvest, not even the time of planting seeds, but in the time of ripening, was pruning these trees to get rid of the bad parts. Much like the grapes, where like the shaking of an olive tree, a bunch of the grapes fell out, a bunch of the stuff you can't use. They were not good to use. And only the few was left over to fully ripen. And then in verse 5, bringing up that comparison of the sour grape in the midst of its ripening. All of that is connected 17 and 18 to prophesying about the end times. Till we get to 7, where we get specific about those end times, when God is going to bring back the remainder of the people to him, which those people are described as scattered, peeled, terrible from the beginning up until that point, meted out, which, as you said, what's meted out mean?
Like the starve when you brought up the whole you brought up that previous verse when they were fat to lean, the descending out of the
Exactly.
glory.
So all of the chapters of 17 to 18 have been prophesying the end times and what it will be like in the last days, and using the contrast and comparison of Damascus and Moab at that time and the
That's
children of
funny.
Israel. And mind you, all this that's talking about, we're not even talking about Jesus's time when he first came, because we're talking about the returning of the scattered. And what did we read a couple chapters ago about the scattered when they return? How many times does that happen?
That I forgot, but don't they return and because it we wouldn't we be talking about after the Jesus situation because of how
Yeah.
we've been, because there's time period when Jesus comes back. There's a certain time period. We're not talking about that certain time period when Jesus comes back. It sounds like what we've been getting into with all the details is like the last of last. Like there's no time to do this. There's no time to do that.
Let me get back to the verse that says it. It was one of the ones that Thomas had read. This was last week, I believe, or the week before. Um, Hold on. Let me find this verse real quick. It was one of the ones that confirmed the second coming of Christ. Isaiah 11:11. Go to that.
Got it. 11:11. I can read it.
Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria and from Egypt and from
Exactly.
Pathros. When we went through this verse, wasn't that the confirmation of this isn't the Babylonian thing? This is the end time thing when they come back?
Exactly. It was also the confirmation that God returns his people to his land twice from being scattered. Once after the exile to Babylon, and once at the end times. So when we're reading about the leftovers of the children of Israel that would actually be saved, that are shaken from, that our branches are cut off and all that, does that sound like we're talking about Babylon? Or does that sound like we're talking about New Testament?
New Testament.
Exactly, because they're no longer part of the branches. Even before the harvest, they're cut off. So we're talking about the parts that did not remain, which means we're talking about the last days, not talking about the exile to Babylon. So 17 and 18 have been prophesying the last days, not prophesying Babylon or the return from.
Got it.
All right. Now then, Thomas, do you understand that we got there too?
Yep, just taking the last couple.
Huh?
Down.
Ticker Mike, I can't hear you.
Yeah, just writing down the last couple of notes.
Okay. Let me know when you're finished with the notes. Actually, what are you writing down with the notes?
Oh, it's just regarding to that this is in relation to the end times. This is the end times. And then how it's happened twice, one after Babylon, then the end times. And
What
also wrote
happened
down
twice?
the returning.
Okay, good.
That's all I was
Although
putting
I
down.
would add more to that so you know what we're talking about. You're not going to understand what the returning is if you say that later, if you just say
Of
that.
Jesus Christ. Well,
Nope,
yeah. Go ahead.
it's not that. I just explained that. I'm glad I asked. It's the returning of the scattered of the children of Israel happens twice.
Okay. Yeah, I got that in my notes. It's just
It was at the time when we were going through it, it partially confirmed Jesus coming back twice. Because the first time he came to establish the new covenant, and the second time he's coming to gather everyone there. But the fact of it saying his hand stretched out, fact of it saying it happening twice, it's the scattering of the people being returned that was specified to happen twice in that context.
got
All
it.
right,
Thank
let me
you.
know when you're done.
I'm done. You hear me?
Yep.
I said I was done.
No, you said okay. That's why you confused me. I said, let me know when you're done, and you said okay.
No, I said I'm done.
Charles, did he say I'm done, or did he say okay? There's nobody listening today.
It
Charles, you're
came after
muted.
the okay. It came after the okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, he said it after the okay.
After I responded or before?
He said okay, and then he said I got it.
Okay. All right. Now then, do you guys have anything you want to add or say before I close it out? Before we pray it out. All right. Then Thomas, go ahead and pray us out from the Bible study portion.
All right, if you guys can bow your heads with me, let's begin prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us here today for another study. We've seen throughout 16, 17, and 18, or 17, 18, that it was in correlation to the end times. And like the end times, may we be warned, may we stay truthful on our salvation path, for it is a lifetime, for it is a lifestyle. May we stick to it, never veer away from it. But in the process, we have teachers like Matt who help and allow us to spread the truth and context and allow us to study and become versed and well at it. We're grateful for the opportunity. It should not be taken for granted. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Now, as towards tonight's Bible listening, our listening section is from 1 Samuel chapter 26, to 2 Samuel chapter 8. Again, that's 1 Samuel chapter 26 to 2 Samuel chapter 8. Let me know when you got it.
Got it.
Got it.
Good. Now, last night's listening was from 1 Samuel chapter 15 to 25. And we'll have Thomas go first, then Charles, and then I'll finish us out.
Okay. I got 1 Samuel 15, 22 through 23, and it reads, Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is the sin of witchcraft. So this is in a time of Saul, God commanding Saul to completely destroy the Amalekites, but he doesn't do that. Saul disobeys, and he ends up keeping the animals. And then when he was confronted at it as well, and he's like making excuses and things of that nature. But long story short, God isn't impressed, is not impressed with anything other than obedience. God wants obedience over all things. So we can sit here and think, oh, we're gonna try to, as Matt would say, find out how thin the line is and do things in our own willing way. But no, God wants obedience. He doesn't want your offerings or anything of that nature.
Good.
That's what I got.
That's a great one. Charles, got anything you want to add on that?
I figured you'd be laughing, Matt. That was the one I told you earlier I got down. It was one of the ones I wrote down. It's a good
Oh
one.
yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
what did
funny.
you want to add on it?
Thomas said what he needed to say for it. There's nothing to add.
Oh no, there's a lot to add. What you mean? For
Tom, the
one,
point that I wanted to bring up, Thomas got that point. I didn't think I wasn't thinking about the other points.
I feel it. I feel it. All right, Thomas, you know how much I got to add on this? Whole bunch. For one, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Not following what he said to the letter, to the point of what he was saying, is the same as doing witchcraft in God's eyes. That is craziness. And stubborn is equal sin with idolatry. Well, think about that for a moment. If you're being stubborn, who are you putting in priority, Thomas? Don't forget to unmute. I don't know why you guys mute yourself all the time like that. Like if we're in the middle of discussing something in your section, why would you go straight back to muting? You guys, that's why you guys slip up a lot and we can't speak.
Yourself. Yourself.
Exactly. So in other words, if you're being stubborn or choosing to do something how you want to do it, you have become your own idol. You are your own God rather than the one true God. And then this is the part that really sticks out for me. You rejected the word of the Lord. So by Saul not going to the T of what God's point was, he rejected God's word. So when somebody wants to establish salvation or take the word out of context to fit their needs, one, they are living in idolatry. Two, it is equal to witchcraft. And three, they have in fact rejected God's word. That's why that sticks out to me for all those reasons. All right. Charles, go ahead with yours.
So, First Samuel chapter 16, verses 14 to 16. This is when the servants they were talking about. Well, the God had put a he took the spirit from Saul and he put an evil. He put the took the good spirit out of Saul, put the evil spirit in Saul. But his servants are like, oh well, God put the spirit in Saul. Let's go find somebody that can play the harp. And then when he plays the harp, we can get that spirit removed from him. I just thought it was funny because it hit me. You knew this came from God. What made you think a heart was going to help Saul? Like, wait a
Right.
minute. You know this. You know who this came. It's not like you assumed or you're like, oh, it may have came from a witch or something. You knew. You the first thing you should have said was, Saul, we got to figure out how to get right with God. You got to repent. You got to. They didn't do none of that. They were like, oh, let's find a heart. Let's find a guy that can play the harp so we can remove this. That's what I don't think we brought that up. That they knew it came from God and they didn't think of any type of repentance, of any type of anything. Let's go get the harp player. Well, go ahead.
All right. That is a great one, too. Thomas, you got anything you want to add on that?
No, I don't.
All right. One thing I really want to point out about that. This is God's introduction for David into royalty. I think that's so interesting. God used David's ability to soothe Saul's soul from wickedness to introduce David into royalty. Did y'all catch that?
No, not really.
Because if David couldn't play the harp, if he couldn't do this, he wouldn't have been in that position. They would have had to select somebody else. David's ability to soothe Saul's soul from the wicked spirit that it was in or that it had is what led to David being brought to royalty. What is it that brings us to royalty in God? Jesus' sacrifice soothes the wickedness of our souls, covering us in righteousness. Just that little parallel there that I noticed.
Pretty dope. I didn't even think about that.
All right. Now then, Thomas or Charles, got anything else you want to add before I go into mine?
Nope.
No.
All right. I could have done Jonathan, but which one do I want to bring up? Yeah, I'll bring up Jonathan. Yeah. Because there was a part of me that was like, I want to bring up about Saul giving David's wives away. Anyways, all right. In chapter 19, in verse 1, calls coming in verse 1 to 4. Saul spake to Jonathan his son and to all his servants that should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, saying, Saul, my father seeketh to kill thee. Now, therefore, I pray thee, take heed to thyself until the morning, and abide in a secret place and hide thyself. And I will go and stand beside my father in the field where thou art, and I will commune with my father of thee. And what I see, that I will tell thee. And Jonathan spake good of David unto Saul his father, and said unto him, let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he hath not sinned against thee, and because of his works have been to thee word very good. The reason I bring this up is because Jonathan was in love with David. And I mean romantically in love with David. He was homosexually in love with David. However, they never sinned in that sin. He gave him all the clothes he had, but they never sinned in that sin. And to top it off, Jonathan even saved David from being killed by his father. It goes to prove the point and show having the homosexual attraction does not make you a sinner. Acting on it does. Jonathan was in love with David, but Jonathan did not sin with David. And as a matter of fact, he saved David. That's why that sticks out to me. All right, Thomas, you got anything you want to add?
No.
Charles, you got anything you want to add?
Nope.
All right. Anything else before we close it out?
Nope.
All right. Have a good night, y'all.